another evening of The Chosen and our fireside chat. The fire is burning. Our guests are here and waiting to, share their wisdom with all of you. Chris did a great job of being me last week when I was on vacation in Honduras in the rain. So I know you were all jealous because I was at a warm climate, and it was warmer, but it rained. And this night, a week ago, it was torrential hurricane type rain. I think, well, it is a rainforest in Honduras, so I don't know why we were surprised by that. Well, welcome back. So tonight's episode, I just want to say ahead of time, those of you who are history nuts and who are trying to find the facts in the midst of this episode, it's a lot imaginative, fictitious. We know these kind of things were happening. The increasing amount of resistance from the Pharisees was happening. We know that the Romans were aware of Jesus and keeping an eye on him. We don't have particulars of those things. So what this episode does is it presents what could be some possible particulars. So don't sweat it. Enjoy it. These kind of things may have happened, and let it touch you as you see the disciples and Jesus wrestling with that kind of resistance that was happening in a number of places, and the population. Enjoy.
Do me dirty.
Well, welcome back. So we'll turn it over to Chris and introduce you to our guests this evening.
We have some beautiful Cabriniites. Is that what we are?
Cabriniites? Cabrinians?
Cabrinians? I like Cabrinians better. Thank you.
Cabrini weenies.
Leroy and Diana Behrens and Ashley Geenan. Welcome. Good episode. So tonight I think I'll just talk. You guys just sit here and watch me. Is that okay?
Sounds good.
Cool.
Wait, don't tune out.
Make our job
Everybody's
easy.
blank. So, your favorite part, who wants to start?
I'll start.
You start.
Okay, deal. One thing that just like in general in this episode, and I mean I think it's like a common theme throughout the whole Chosen series, but there's so much humor in it. And when you think about like a religious show, you don't expect that to happen, but it's really cool because it brings these like biblical characters that seem to be from this like famous book you read, like it brings them to life as people that you can then like relate to. So that was one thing. I was just laughing a lot during this episode. Yeah, I think in the very beginning when Jesus mentioned, he's talking about like the Sermon on the Mount, and he's like, this will define our whole ministry. And I thought about it a little bit. I think it's kind of funny almost because yes, the Sermon on the Mount like turns out to be a big deal, but not maybe like the most defining moments of what we think of when we like think about Jesus' ministry. And like so many times in our lives, I think we like hyper focus on certain things and we're like, oh my gosh, my life will be over if it doesn't go this way. And so I thought that part was kind of interesting, how he was like, it will define our whole ministry. But yeah, I think that's probably the first thing I noticed.
Good. Mm-hmm. Your favorite parts?
I personally really enjoyed the boat scene with Andrew and Peter going back and forth, because that discussion, I kind of see myself in both of those characters and reacting in those same way, in those same ways with Andrew being fearful and protective and judgmental. All of those things I've seen in myself, especially when my kids are involved or Leroy would be involved. I become like a big mama bear, and I can kind of see myself in Andrew, but then I also see myself in Peter, where he's trying to calm his brother and not worry as much, which isn't normally Peter's character. A lot of times he's more like Andrew's behaving there, but he's kind of shifting.
It was a good brotherly fight.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Argument, I should
just
say.
really interesting to watch the two, their dynamics shift a little bit,
Yeah.
because Andrew's usually more the calm one. So
Yeah, he was pretty excitable in this episode.
Yeah,
it was interesting.
it was a bad day.
Yes,
Yes.
I really enjoyed that piece.
Leroy?
I really enjoyed the meeting between Quintus and Jesus.
Yeah.
Because Quintus is a very interesting character. You never quite know where he's coming from or which direction he's going, and he's just kind of like he can do whatever he wants.
You can.
And he can, and Jesus is just like, okay, I'm still going to do what I'm going to do, you know. And I think Jesus already knows what he's planning is going to be another bone for Quintus, because he's going to bring a whole bunch of people into one place.
Right. I think the line in that dialogue was that got me was when Quintus said, "The first time I heard about you, I didn't believe it," and Jesus says, "That's usually how it goes." Isn't that the truth?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
What was your favorite part?
I would agree with Leroy that it was the interchange. Jesus' calmness and clearness in a setting where I would be very nervous. Okay, this person has the power to kill me, and I've been brought in for questioning. I'm not certain I could even say a full sentence clearly in that setting, and Jesus is just responding so
And almost like
Centered.
joking back with it, where
yeah,
you're like,
right,
you've got quite the backbone there.
yeah, dealing with that bones and flesh, some stories that Quintus is telling.
And then his comment at the end about his father, and how Quintus just glosses over that, like, yeah, I don't know what you're talking
Yeah.
about, but
Right,
that was really interesting to me.
yeah.
Yeah, he had no clue.
He had no
Right.
clue.
No, what he was talking about.
I think the whole Quintus character is kind of a fascinating creation, because it's presuming that there was a Roman procurator in the Galilee, which there probably was. So there would have been somebody up there overseeing. So we know Pontius Pilate well, who's in the South and plays a big role in Jesus' life. And maybe they're trying to pick up some of Pilate's style for Quintus, because Pilate's like, I don't see anything wrong with this guy.
Right, right.
And why do you keep forcing me to do this? I wash my hands of his blood. This is not mine. And their job was to keep the peace, and they controlled the Roman soldiers at the garrisons when they had to step in. The Sanhedrin would have been like the local law that was governing the area. So if it was, Quintus is the state patrol, person who comes in and takes over if the mayor in Omaha can't handle things, then they have to come in. So it's these different levels of governance, but he's a law unto himself as the Roman procurator.
We had Janet wrote in that her favorite part of that conversation was when Quintus says he can't promise that his Father in heaven will be so nice. and Quintus of all the things he does, to Quintus for all the things that he does. So Jesus can't promise what God's going to do.
You're right.
You know, I think it's funny how, well, speaking of, how we'd be freaked out if that happened to us. The apostles were. Obviously,
Right,
they
right.
were really freaked
Oh,
out,
yeah.
and Jesus was just so. I don't get how unbelieving they still kind of are. Like when I'm pretty sure it was Andrew says when they were arguing in the boat. That he never comes back with anything when he goes to the desert. When he goes away, he never comes back with anything. You remember that line?
Yeah, it's good.
Like, Jesus is really slow walking them through this whole thing.
Yeah.
It's not like, okay, we're going to meet every night, and I'm going to teach you to pray, and you're going to do this, and you're going to be that away, and you're going to be nice, and it's really a slow. It really is a slow walk.
Yeah. It's very respectful of them, and where they're at and what they're capable of. And yeah. So that slowness is purposeful. Yeah.
And when Jesus says, I will be back.
And after he comes back, I told you I'd be back.
Yeah.
What are you guys doing?
You should have come back sooner, though. Why did you
Yeah,
go
that
pray? We were
was-
still worried about you.
Yeah.
And Mary yelling at the boys,
Yeah.
you called us boys. That's what
You're
you
acting
were.
like it.
Yeah, really.
And the part in the tent, when they're all kind of going about, well, what should we do?
Yeah.
And I love that part where Mary Magdalene says, after she's accused by Andrew about leaving and causing all this trouble, she admits, I made a mistake. What I did was wrong. And I think that takes a lot of courage, to do that for her. But it shows again her strength, and what she can, and what she does all the time for that group. She's leading in her way. She's leading each of them. So it's just so fun to watch, and it's encouraging too because she steps up and says, I was wrong.
It's like an early confession.
Yes, it is.
She went to confession.
It is.
She
It's
says, "I made a
exactly
mistake."
like that.
Yeah.
Right. And when she came back, he kind of did a confession thing with her, right? When she first came
Right.
back. Yeah. So she was doing that with them too. Just kind of full circle. Very cool.
I think they've done a really good job of keeping this from, we're 2,000 years out, and we can kind of figure all this out. And, nothing is assumed. They're not presuming anything.
Right.
They don't know nothing. And my favorite line of this whole episode was, prayer is the first step in getting the heart and the mind right.
Right.
Boy, isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
And I was glad they ended on that because they probably had a desire to pray while Jesus was gone and arrested, but they felt they didn't know how. And they've been struggling to learn, like the women are learning the Psalms. But you never saw the boys praying while in Jesus' absence. So when he comes back, you gotta teach us.
Yeah, yeah, except that they said teach us besides the prayers that we're saying.
Right.
The Jewish prayers that they were saying.
Yep.
I've got one from Gail here that says it was interesting that after everything they had been through, I hope there's no bad words in here. I'm just kind of reading this. Not that Gail would say it. It was interesting that after everything they had been through with Jesus already, there were difficult levels of trust when Jesus told them not to worry because he would be back. That was good.
Yep.
Anything else? Touch you?
The Lord's Prayer at the end, for sure. I even said, as you're watching, I was like, oh, I got chills. Because it's like one of those things, and especially in in all faiths, probably this is true, but especially in the Catholic Church, because we do like so much repetition and we recite so many things in Mass. sometimes you forget about the significance of each of these prayers that we're doing. And when Jesus starts explaining the Lord's Prayer and how it's like his instructions on how to pray like in the most effective way, so cool. And it was broken down line by line like that. Now I think instead of just like saying things out of habit, it's so important to like step back.
It is.
And think about like why we're saying these things and what they actually mean, and why is this significant to pray. Like you're praying the rosary and you say Hail Mary over and over and over again, but like am I actually stopping to like think about the words I'm saying, or is it just like, you know, on repeat in my mind?
And the Our Father is so powerful if you think about what you're saying.
Right. Well, and it's a universal in a lot of churches. So I was raised Baptist, and we said the Lord's Prayer in our faith too back then. So yeah, it's a universal prayer, and I love how they make that the ending of this scene. It's a perfect way, yeah, to tie it in and to include all people
Yeah.
of faith. Right.
Absolutely.
I think the scene with Quintus and Jesus was very popular with a lot of people. Here's one from Diane that says, Quintus says, sorry about what happened to your cousin. And Jesus said, he knows what he was doing. And then Quintus says, do you? And Jesus doesn't answer. Which is kind of telling, too.
Well, and one of the things that caught me too was toward the end of this episode was they were talking, and I don't remember who Jesus was talking to, but he said, do not be afraid. And the apostles haven't quite got that yet.
No.
But Jesus is constantly telling us not to be afraid, but the apostles haven't quite let that sink in yet, I don't think. Obviously, by the way they were acting.
Right.
Well, and too, you know, when he said that you can't shut down when you're fearful, that really hits home, I think, with a lot of things that we struggle with.
Absolutely. That
You
was a
know,
good line.
Shut down when you're fearful. And then
Right.
Peter right away says, you know, we'll do better. We'll
Yeah.
do better. So just kind of showing his characteristics of who he's going to be as he goes along.
Yeah,
You know,
when
where
Jesus
he's
gets
ready to-
arrested, you're one of his followers. No. Never saw him before.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they deal with that part of
Right.
it. But,
Yeah.
You know,
but it was really, you know, they were all so freaked out. And he was just so calm. Just so calm.
Yeah, even when like the Romans are marching like so powerfully towards them, and he's just standing there looking like nothing. And I don't know how he does it. I mean, I guess he's Jesus and I'm not, so that would explain that one. But
So the goal, you know, is we have on our sign out front, is that we are to become like Jesus.
Yeah.
And I think to be so centered, to have your trust in God, that God will provide you with the words and the actions to just take whatever comes. I think, okay,
Yeah.
because Jesus says you'll be arrested, but don't worry,
Yeah.
you'll be given the words.
Oh, to be like that.
Yeah, okay, I gotta trust that
Yeah.
this is what God's will here, and I just have to keep walking through it, no matter what that is going on around me, but just continue.
and this whole episode is just like over and over again, like trust comes up
Yeah.
with every different person pretty much in the whole episode, and it's probably one of the hardest things to do, and it's evident like they do a really good job depicting that in this series, like showing all of these people just struggling to trust.
Trust is
Yeah.
that's the key deal, you know.
Right.
Yeah,
Which is hard to do sometimes, but that they're making that very evident that that's what he did. Just trust.
Right.
Whatever happens, happens, you know.
That contrast that
Yeah.
you see so evidently between Jesus and everyone else.
Because
You know?
it's funny when they saw the Romans marching at them, you know, he didn't go, oh boy, we're in deep, you know, now we're in trouble. He's just like this with his hands calming everybody down.
Yeah.
It's going to be be okay.
Oh, and then he asked to like hug his mom goodbye,
Right.
like say goodbye. I wanted to cry. So
He could have
sweet.
said, "Quick, everybody, let's walk on the water."
No kidding.
And everybody would have sang.
No kidding.
We're not there yet.
We're not there yet.
Come on, do a miracle.
I think one of the other parts I really enjoyed was, I think it's the Prima, the one that kind of watched over Matthew and how they became close, the Roman soldier that
Oh, yeah.
watched over Matthew. And how in his mind, I'm sure he was thinking about that as he got to Jesus's camp. And Jesus was in tune and he knew what he was thinking. So
Right.
right away he says to him, Matthew's okay.
Yeah. I think he's a little trusting of Jesus. I think he's intrigued by Jesus.
Right.
Because when, is it Atticus, is that the guy's name? Tells him that he saw the miracles. He said,
Yeah.
I saw Jesus heal a leper, and I saw Jesus do this. He's like, I think he might be close to converting. It
Right.
probably won't happen, but he's thinking that Jesus is something special.
And he's more interested in the facts because that's who he is.
Right.
He's a detective. He wants to
Right.
figure it out. Unlike the Pharisees, and it kind of slays me that the Pharisees, especially Shmuel, is just bent on bringing Jesus to justice and not paying attention to the actual miracles that he's performing. It's more that he's breaking the law, more so than, wow, he's healing
Right.
people that have been crippled for, 30
and
years.
using it all for their own political gain.
Exactly.
So this has nothing to do with the reality of what's going on. It's just how we can use this.
And then the other Pharisee shows up incognito and says, yeah, he pointed out that very thing.
Right.
And he was following more closely
Nicodemus.
Nicodemus.
Yeah.
And, knowing that
Yes.
Nicodemus had seen something that interested him about Jesus. And he's willing to maybe learn
Get
more
himself
about the
in
facts
trouble.
and
Right.
see what it is about Jesus rather than,
And I think it's funny too, they're having a tough time figuring out, I don't know who said it, but it might have been one of the Pharisees that says Jesus is dangerous, but what law did he break?
Right.
They're having a tough time figuring out, what do we get him for? We don't, he's really bugging us, but we don't know what to get him for. you
Right.
know? Besides the healing on the Sabbath and those kinds of things, and to them, I think dangerous is. I think they're more scared than dangerous. I think they think he's dangerous because he scares them.
or irritated that he can do things they can't.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and I wonder if they've been so ingrained in the thought of false prophets that they have this big fear that he is a false prophet and he's going to lead all these people down this wrong road. They're not keeping an open mind of the things he really is doing. They're just focusing on that fear of that false prophet.
And the whole Messiah thing of thinking that he's going to be a great leader of big armies and, be a king. And I think even part of the conversation that Andrew and Peter were having that came up. Like the one where he said he doesn't come back with anything. He doesn't come back with armies or anything. What the hell's he doing in the desert?
Back when they were even talking, I didn't catch the whole thing. I wrote down part of it. But is it Atticus and anyways, they're talking about Jesus and they're like saying how he's supposed to be this like big scary like leader, but the thing is, like they said, like he doesn't strike me as scary though. And I felt like that was very interesting because they're like they seem to be scared of like his power and what he's doing, but then they're like, I think when they're talking about his personality is like what makes him so scary is because he doesn't seem like a scary person and he's touching so many people's lives.
Right.
And like people don't think of him as like a bad person because he has this like calmness about him and like,
Yeah, he's not screaming
Right.
or saying, hey, look what I did to this guy. He's not, certainly not an extrovert.
If you were out there,
I'm
just kidding.
I'm way out there. I'm so far out there, you can't get me. And Rome was concerned about the zealots.
Yeah.
They were really freaked out about the zealots, because I think, and you know more about this history than me, but the zealots were going to overthrow, their plan was to overthrow the Romans, right?
Right. So the same thing that they did to the Greeks during the time of the Maccabees, they would do again, and that's to throw off the outsiders, so make it uncomfortable enough that they wouldn't want to stay there. Or they're not going to attack Rome to destroy Rome. They just wanted Rome away, and that's what they did with the Greeks. They just leave us alone, and so we'll make it impossible for you to stay. Which Rome didn't like, because Rome appreciated the taxes it got from everywhere, and the control of the peacefulness, and that area, Israel is really a highway between Egypt and Turkey and then into Europe. So if you're going to take something via the road, you had to go through Israel. That was the route.
Then Diane says, God never demands from anyone. The freedom of
I found
choice is
this on the
given to
web.
us all. You said Syria. Did you say Syria?
No, I didn't say anything, but she found something on the web for us. Well, let's see what she found. You read that and I'll see what.
The freedom of choice is given to us all, and that came through in this episode, and I think that's right. Jesus.
I'm sorry, can you repeat I missed the beginning of that one. Can you just say it again?
God never demands from anyone. The freedom of choice is given to us all. And she thought that really came through in this episode, which it does. He's not pushing this down someone's throat. Did you find something interesting there, Father?
She's trying to clarify,
The zealots?
how Israel is the highway for everybody.
That's funny. I thought you said
So,
Syria.
but two journalists back in November from the New York Times drove the length of Israel to discover why it was the highway for everybody years ago, and they meet a kaleidoscope of other people. So there you go. Thank you, Siri.
Those of you who haven't watched the Bible study, one night he said Syria.
Yeah.
And
I remember that.
And my
was talking
phone
to
said, I did not understand. Could you please repeat that?
And the beauty was you didn't realize it until you said Syria.
Right. Yeah. Why is Siri bothering me?
I think one other thing I liked was how Jesus went and woke Matthew up to have him come and I'm guessing to take notes to help him organize his thoughts.
Yeah, that's the theme in the series.
And it's
Yeah.
just interesting, he's calling on those gifts. That's what hit me, that's Matthew's gift, is his ability to write the notes and be concise and that type of thing.
That was a
And-
sweet scene.
Yeah, and it just reminds me of how he calls on each of us for our gifts. If you think about it, it's, he's calling on Matthew, but he's also calling on all of us. If we know what our gifts are, to step forward,
And it's
kinda
not
cool.
necessarily when it's convenient for
Yeah.
us, because Matthew's like, now?
He's sleepy. Yeah, can we do it later? And that's what we do, right? If it's,
Well,
not in our,
It's why the gospel writers would also write that he would rise early in the morning before the others were awake to go off by himself and pray. How do you know that? He woke me up a couple times.
Yeah.
Took me along.
How cool, I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
Matthew even is like, why did you only wake
Yeah,
me? Like, why didn't you
yes.
wake everyone else? And there's so many times where, like, you get asked to do something, and you're like, why? Why are you asking me to do that? Like, I don't feel like you should be asking just me or whatever. But, yeah.
we question.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Instead
And we
of
should
one
just
second.
do it.
Trusting, yeah.
Just
And I know we've discussed this in earlier episodes, but the diversity of the apostles, how they're all so completely different
Yeah.
personalities.
Yeah.
And I think we've said before, they would never have gotten together as regular friends because they're not
No.
anything alike.
No,
No, it's Jesus who binds us. Which is like church.
yes.
It's what brings us together is a common faith. And
Yeah, because I wouldn't be with these guys.
Unity and family.
we'd be arguing all the time. What do you mean?
Cabrini's the only thing I got going with you guys. I'll tell you that right now.
Community and family. It's the underlying theme. Yeah.
Anything else, anyone? It was a good episode. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you very much. That
We
was
had
fun.
a great time.
That was fun. I hope you had a good time.
Yeah. So join us again next week for the conclusion of season 2 of The Chosen, and we'll look forward to season 3.
Thanks to the incomparable Peter Sobey and
Yes.
And
the
Doug.
incomparable Deacon Doug for their help. So next week,
Good
the
night.
last episode.
Good night.